I am the National Grand Secretary of the State of Indiana. Divine Minister Dr. Zainatinu Hajarul, and I rise giving perfect praises to our Father God Allah, and the highest honors to our Holy Prophet, El-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali. I would like to extend honors to all of Act 1 and also our theocratic Moorish American government. Honors to our Royal Consul, honors to our Grand National Seal, our Grand National Emblem, and our Grand National Flag, the Moorish flag. And honors to our divine constitution and bylaws, and also to all of you for being here in this Moorish perspective class. Islam, Islam, Islam. Chapter 31. Yehoshua passes the 5th adab degree, heroism. The sacred temple groves were rich in statues, monuments, and shrines. Here, Yehoshua loved to walk and meditate. And after he had conquered self, he talked with nature in these groves for 40 days. And then the guide took chains and bound him hand and foot, and cast him into a den of hungry beasts, and unclean birds and creeping things. The den was dark as night. The wild beasts howled. The birds in fury screamed. The reptiles hissed. And Yehoshua said, "Who is it that did bind me thus? Why did I meekly sit to be bound down by chains? With chains, I tell you, none has the power to bind the human soul. Of what are fetters made?" And in his might he rose, and what he thought were chains were only worthless cords that parted at his touch. And then he laughed and said, "The chains that bind man to the carcass of earth are forged in fancy shops, and made of air and welded in illusion fires. If man will stand and use the power of will, his chains will fall like worthless rags. For will and faith are stronger than the stoutest chains that men have ever made." And Yehoshua stood erect among the hungry beasts and birds and said, "What is this darkness that envelopes me? 'Tis but the abundance of the absence, the power of our family. 'Tis but the absence of the light. And what is light? 'Tis but the breath of Allah vibrating in a rhythm of rapid thought." And then he said, "Let there be light." And with a mighty will, he stirred the ethers up, and their vibrations reached the plane of light. And there was light. The darkness of that den of night became the brightness of a newborn day. And then he looked and see the beasts and birds and creepy things. Lo, they were not. And Yehoshua said, "Of what is soul afraid? Fear is the chariot in which man rides to death. And when he finds himself within the chamber of the dead, he learns that he has been deceived. His chariot was a myth, and death a fancy child. But someday all men's lesson will be learned, and from the den of unclean beasts and birds and creepy things, he will arise to walk in light." And Yehoshua saw a ladder made of gold, on which he climbed, and at the top the white-robed priest awaited him. Again he stood before the council bar. Again no word was said. Again the Hierophant reached forth his hand to bless, and placed in Yehoshua's hand another scroll. On this one was written heroism. The Logos had encountered fear and all his phantom hope, and in the conflict he achieved the victory. Islam, Islam, Islam. Today is November 19th, 2022, and welcome to another Moorish Perspective class sponsored by our Moorish American government. Our host instructor will be our National Assistant Grand Sheikh, Dr. Shedwa Minty and Moheji Shepsuel. We will be coming from our chapter 31 out of Yehoshua Passes the Fifth Adab Degree, Heroism. Gratitude again to the Consul General of Texas, Divine Minister Dr. Marvin Edwards Bay, for opening up the way according to law. And also gratitude to our National Grand Secretary of the State of Indiana, Divine Minister Dr. Saad Natilu Tajaru L, for taking registration and also reading the chapter of the week. At this time, I will call forth our National Assistant Grand Sheikh, Dr. Shedwa Minty and Moheji Shepsuel.
Islam Goddess,
Unmuted.
Islam.
so Sister Grand Sheik is not on yet.
No, I'm here.
Open it up.
Can
Are
you?
you there? Okay.
Yeah, can you hear me, brother? Yes, sir. Gratitude, brother, for
You're
being.
very low. You're very low to our National Assistant Grand Sheikh.
Okay, can you hear me now?
Much better. Gratitude.
Okay, gratitude, Islam. Islam, Islam, Islam. Islam, Moorish America. But let us rise upon the seven and give all praises to the great God Allah, Father God Allah, and honors to his holy prophet, honors to our holy prophet, Noble Drew Ali, El-Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali, that is. We give honors to our Moorish kin once again, here, there, and everywhere, and therefore honors to all of you who are continuously honoring yourselves by being yourselves. We give honors to our Grand National Seal. We give honors to our Grand National Emblem, National Flag, Divine Constitution and bylaws, and honors to all of you who are indeed a living manifestation and personification of everything. And I do mean everything that our holy prophet brought to make us a nation. I want to welcome our Moorish kin to another Grand Moorish Perspectives. I'm your host instructor, Dr. Shahid Imani Mohadi Shabazz El. And my ancient Comedian high name being the same is Dr. Shedwa Minty Moheji Shepsuel. We have a powerful demonstration to bring on the manifest Moorish kin, as always. So we encourage our Moorish kin to have their paper and their pen handy, so that ones can come forth and bring their portion, by the time we're done with this special drawing. Also want to give honors to those, whom are supporting their government by showing their presence, when it comes to dealing with our live stream. Prophet Noble Drew Ali instruct the Moors to be a part of all uplifting acts, and so praise be to Allah. We support that in which we love. But we give honors to all of the Moors that are on the manifest, because this is going to be a powerful demonstration. In the heading of the live stream, I have the power of the will breaks all chains. And it's supposed to be bondage and enslavement. That in and of itself is a powerful demonstration. And we are getting that drawing, family. The definition in regards to dealing with where we coming from when we define this a special matter of what we call freedom, Moorish freedom, because there is no true freedom outside of Moorish freedom. Once we come into a clear conception of that, then we know what it is to truly be free. I ain't talking about to perhaps, be free and somebody told you that you had some manumission that took place under somebody else's government and all those types of measures that we have been believing for some time now. In fact, like we told our Moorish kin through the week, we had one tell us, and basically, if we would have voted, we can get some land. And what I found out is no matter what position our people take under somebody else's government, none of that amounts to anything when it comes to us being free as a people. It may sound good and look good, but most of the time when our people are placed in positions in these other governments, what have they done for their people? You know what? Just to say we got a so-called Negro mayor, so-called black mayor, so-called colored mayor, city councilman and all this type of stuff here, and that's supposed to be enough. That's called pacification, Moorish King. But our subject title is a grammar, and you can see it if you're on the live stream flowing across the bottom of the screen. If man will stand and use the power of will, his chains will fall like worthless rags. For will and faith are stronger than the stoutest chains that the men have ever made. That's a powerful demonstration right there. So you mean to tell me that when it come down to one being able to break this bondage, all one has to demonstrate is the power of the will? It can't just be any form of the will. This has to be deific will. And this would cause his chains to fall if we had the will. Well, that will along with faith. Now, there's a question that is asked to our people. And we told our Moorish kin this a couple of times. The United Nations, when our Moorish kin went before them in 2007, I want to say May 5th, they asked our people, or they asked our government, the officials, is there a unanimous will among our people to be free? So when they speak of the power of will, you're talking about a unanimous will. I'm going to give you something else. I want to show our family something too. I'm going to share my screen real quick. I'm going to go to our government website. For those of you who are not familiar with the Moorish American government website, you can also go there and find a whole lot of things out about freedom. Let me get it open over here, and then I'm going to open this up, and we got you. Okay, there we go, right there. I want to show you some things here because there's a lot of things that's actually here, but I want to show you a statement that I made sure I put in this demonstration. And it came from the Declaration of the Rights of Indigenous People. And this is it right here, right up under the prophet. You see the prophet sitting right here? Right up under the prophet. We're going to touch on this in a little bit. I just want to lay this foundation, let you know what type of will we talk about, so our people don't get it twisted. So it says the will, let me blow that up. So Article 21, Section 3. The will of the people shall be the basis of the authority of government. That's what we lay in our founding, Universal Declaration of Human Rights, right? So it says a divine warning for the prophet, for the nations. We can go into that. We're going to get into these things, as we move along. So we have to break our chains individually as well, being collective. The individual aspect of breaking our chains has to do with the divine aspect of the fix that we must solve. The collective aspect has to do with the national that we must solve. You see? In other words, once we say salvation, our God, and unity, we know salvation is the prophet, our God is Allah. We have to have a one-on-one relationship with our prophet, one-on-one relationship with the great God, and we have to have unity amongst each other. And that's what the Grand National Seal is a representation of. So this is what we talk about, salvation, our God, and unity. If we are demonstrating this as one people, this is what we call unanimous will. This is what we call deific will. I'm just laying this foundation. Now let us go into the actual chapter of the week, now that we got that out the way, right? Because we're going to come right back to it. Okay. I'm going to present again. This time I'm going to present the whole screen. That way I can actually move and navigate across this whole demonstration. So I want to show our family our chapter for the week. I'm gonna go ahead and hit this right here so it don't close up on me. And this is actually dealing with the fifth brotherhood test as well, which is adept degree actually. We were talking about this today, the difference between heroism and heroism, how to become a hierophant. So, and we sent this out to our Moorish kin. This is very important, you know, that you look in your email and you look at this special demonstration, right? We see the ayat here, ayat 9. If man, again, will stand and use the power of will, we just talked about that will. We have to use the will on a divine level to link up with the great God Allah. We have to use the will when it comes to dealing with our national aspects of movement, when it comes to linking our wills together. You see? And then all of those chains that bind us to the conditions of suffering under names such as Negro, Black, Colored, Ethiopian, you know, all of the suffering that we deal with under that demonstration will disappear or dissipate, so to speak, right? So we have to have the will and the faith as well. You see? And if this is stronger than the stoutest chains that men have ever made, then this means that in all actuality, we could have already been free as a people if we didn't believe that man's will was stronger than the will of the great God. But if you believe that the will of man extends beyond that of deific will, then that's where one is burned up at the start. You see? So let me go into some measures and touch on some of these things. You know, as our chairman went into this drawing, this is Acton's Adept Lesson 417. Like I said, we sent it out to our Moorish kin. Our chairman always do a good job when it comes into these special measures. Ali passes the fifth adept degree. I like how he put this over here. You know, he put Jesus, you know, and then he put, you know, the Justice League over there. He got Superman out the front there, standing up there, right? Oh man, heroism. So let's just let the chairman go into the essence of this drawing. You know, notice it said heroism, right? It says he refers to strength. The male image prefixes the illusion of our subject, he, or heroism, right? Hero, right? Idol, symbol, champion, celebrity, star, leader, conqueror, favorite, deity. We're just talking about this today. That heroism has got a lot of our people in some big trouble. You know, this so-called act of bravery. Now, there's one thing when it comes to a balance, when it comes to the act of bravery. But then another when this bravery calls you to think you just the stuff to where you want to exalt your throne above the stars of the Most High God. Now, that is a problem. That's, and we was talking about this today. We had mentioned one in the Piscean records, old Nebuchadnezzar, who became so prideful, he was turned into a state of bestial nature and was crawling on all fours, made an example, you know. But that's another mention. We'll get into that at another time. Heroism, the act of valor, bravery, boldness, daring, fearlessness, courageousness. You know, all of these are good characteristics to have. Don't get us wrong. But when you look at these characteristics in man, you know, and you begin to put man on a particular pedestal where you set him up as a rival deity to the great God Allah, this is when it becomes a problem. You know, heroism, personality worship, and all other types of idolatry is the main reason that we as a people have suffered divine wrath and chastisement all the way up to today. But let's go on. So the chairman gives us, masterminds and heroism defined. Now, listen to what he says. He stated masterminds are the retentions of gods while being controllers of human forms. They are right order over ignorance, thinking over boorish wisdom. Not Moorish, but boorish wisdom, right? Boorish wisdom over matter. It says, and control over blind acceptance. Since the beginning of time, better known as the fall of man, there has forever been those who have reserved, protected, and sustained the purpose of man as a thinker. The collectives of these consciousness of God's traveling in flesh has been preserved by the first human people of pigmentation. Today's Africans, and then sustained by the sacred schools of prophets, e.g. Buddha, Confucius, Muhammad, and Ali. Masterminds are those who have a constant hollowed educational system sustained on earth, usually Egypt and Africa, ancient Kemet. All they do is live as gods and preserve the consecrated lessons of what life is truly spent to build, the temple of perfected man. Masterminds preserve spirit man's soulful right to be God. See, this is the duty of a mastermind, to make sure that there's a lineage of this special teaching by raising up those, who would actually pick up the mantle, so to speak. Right? This is the duty of masterminds, to preserve spirit man's soulful right to be God. Without this sacred assurance of living gods, the fall of man would be without an inevitable rise. That's a powerful demonstration. So the lineage of God men and God women is, we here on the manifest basically to make sure that there's always an opportunity for our people to rise to the occasion. If you ever notice, the great God Allah has never left a people without a prophet, a divine warner. He has never left a people without divine leadership to guide them aright after they have went astray in any particular era in time that we can think of. That's why we have so many master teachers that came with master teachings, and even books in cases. Some people were the book. They didn't have to bring a particular book. They were the message that was to be brought, whatever the case may be. We can look at it on any level, whether you look at it from a level of major prophets and minor prophets. But not a one of them, regardless of the miracles they was able to demonstrate or the saving power that they was able to exercise, neither one of these people told you to worship them. And not near told the people, you see what I'm doing? I want you to bow down to me. Now, we done seen some roll their pant leg up a few times and open up a fresh can, as our chairman would say. We done seen some of them do that and bring wrath down and everything. They have been given powers, been empowered to do things. We talked about the showdown with Elijah on Mount Carmel all the time. We also talk about Moses having another use for that staff that he was told. He didn't just split the Red Sea. But we'll let you figure out the rest of it. Because some people are just a hard-headed, mean, stiff-necked set of people that ain't never did nothing but at the point of a stick, a scimitar. Islam. So when we go into this special demonstration, Moorish kid, it's a powerful drawing that we have been considered in this new era in time, this age of the cycles. that we would have a mastermind or masterminds in plural, with the Moorish American government being on the manifest. Prophet Noble Drew Ali said he was going to come back and he was going to repeat himself. And each and every more within the sounds of my voice that hear right now, we are all expressions of the repeat. Prophet Noble Drew Ali is using all of us as vessels to communicate what it is that he will, through deific will, to lift our people up and bring them up out of that bondage, which we call mental slavery. You see? So anyway, it went on. It says masterminds are often referred to as sages, wise men, monks, mystics, and adepts. They alone teach, prepare, and graduate nationals into the stations of harbingers, prophets, and angels. So when we look at a harbinger, our brother Marcus Mosai Garvey L came through the line of harbinger prophets. You see, he laid the foundation and made the hearts and minds of our people ready for that God man that was coming behind them for what was to come. You heard our brother, he say, one God, one aim, one destiny. Prophet Noble Drew Ali says, salvation, our God, unity. That was his response to that. You see, it says, they alone teach, prepare, and graduate nationals into the stations of harbingers, prophets, and angels. These truly holy people would be the highest order of today's Sunday school teachers. For indeed, they are the best ones on the planet to teach an angel born in the state of North Carolina the duties of a holy prophet. Indeed, from the honorable adept chambers of masterminds is the origin of out from your Sunday school comes the guiders of a nation. There's a reason Prophet Noble Drew Ali said this. Now, if they were already a nation, like some of our people think, in the lawfully chartered organization the prophet established, if they were already a nation, then why would he say out from the Sunday school come the guiders of the nation? Actually, he was speaking of the divine and national expression right there, because the Sunday school aspect has to do with the divinity. The guiders of the nation had to do with the national aspect of the movement. You see? So his lawfully chartered organization was a religious corporation. You see? Where one was to learn how to master self. And after they become masters of self, then they become executive rulers. Executive rulers of what? Of their own Moorish American nation. That's why when they speak of the adept chamber, the executive rulers of the adept chamber, the executive rulers represent the government. You see? So these adepts will be those who are adept in the national and divine expression, to where they can come forth and demonstrate, and be true rulers of their own nation. We're not just coming up in the way that they do it here in Rome. You can come any type of way you want to. We know they do that in the church. Oh, did they? I say Congress or the Senate. But we know they call it that, come as you are. But what happened when you have those who haven't been properly vetted and divinely guided? What happened when they come into leadership? Well, we already seen it when we look at all these other nations that are not demonstrating under what we call theocracy. Theocracy is rule under God. We already know what, all these other ocracies demonstrate democracy, and we can go on in everything, republic, oligarchy, hierarchy, all these different forms of rulership. We have seen that they have failed a people. So it's necessary that one find true governance outside of corporate governance, in the case in what we're dealing with over here in the United States, occupied America, let's say it that way. So It says, this is why no man should never conjure a holy prophet under any form of heroism. For prophets are angels sent by the great God, never heroes or heroines, right? It says, in the Western world of competition, be it business, social endeavors, or sports, we are taught to study other minds outside of the self. That's the problem right there. We taught to master somebody else's mind. We had a class today, a brilliant class, amongst our Moorish consortium of executive rulers. And what we were emphasizing to our people is that rather than studying somebody else by watching their ways and trying to even critique one should study one to know what not to do. And this is why Prophet Noble Ali again left that European here to teach the Moors how to run a government. He was teaching us what not to do. See, all this has to do with breaking them chains. All this has to do with liberating ourselves, mind, body, and soul. Being 5/5, you see, instead of 3/5, somebody else's property under assumable jurisdiction. 13th and 14th Amendment chattel slavery. So anyway, it say it is always a waste of life to study externally rather than to master the one and only mind that governs itself. Sadly, today many believe such a destructive practice of mastering the mind of another is heaven, but in reality, the comforts in hell are all that's left for their mind to live. This is not living. And that's what happens when you get caught up, in somebody else's mind. You do know man and mind is the same thing. You can only be yourself. You can't be another man. Nor can you be someone else's mind. We got to pay close attention to that, especially drawing, family. Very important that we know this. So it says, Noble Drew Ali has been divinely prepared for the sole purpose to save his nation from the divine wrath of slavery. It has taken over 4 centuries and 30 generations for Western Freemasonry to subjugate his people in order for them to become complacent and satisfied, being in the depths of self-enslavement. Ali would later describe this depth, the lowest form of chattel slavery ever imposed on any member of the human family of nations, as mental slavery, right? Any illness, disease, or otherwise psychic disorder has indeed reached its deepest depth when lowered to the detrimental level of self-infliction. Once any sickness has become self-imposed and accepted as habitual amongst a group of men, it grows from highly contagious to hereditary in future generations. Man, this is very powerful because this is the same lesson that run parallel with what we was demonstrating when we was talking about the ethics, of Islam. And we were dealing with trying to cleanse one's hearts and minds from certain maladies. Same measure in here is very powerful demonstration. There are no strain happening. We can't make this stuff up, and we can't even organize this demonstration like this. It just came to the manifest because it was meant to manifest. Praise be to Allah. It says, when the mind has submitted to domination and external rule as normal, right? Then post-traumatic slave syndrome becomes accepted as beneficial. Wow. So in other words, when you get caught up in the slavery, you so much all up in it that somebody ruling your mind and you content with that, then ones feel like it's all right to be in bondage. They think it's all right to give one power over them, clothing them, to dress them, all types of other measures. Remember, the highest heights are gained by those who have reached the greatest depths. and man finds himself where he can solve his problem best. At this level, the only good thing about mental slavery is because it has now reached the lowest depths of internment, the survivors can now grow from this lowest fall known to man to achieve the heavenly throne of God Himself. You see? Still we rise. After the fall, we rise. The fall gave us a reason to rise. Islam. It says here it should be noted man's constitution and political abolishment of slavery does not also free the hearts nor minds of the victims from atrocities of mental slavery. It is only through the divine order whereas the cause of mental slavery itself become the universal prayer and final call needed to summon the national saving powers of a major prophet. For these constitutional reasons, every Moorish American whom must purify their hearts and minds with love has entered their pinnacle of wisdom to become a master of his or her own mind. All masterminds are God consciousness in human forms and often described as angels. Angel is a thought of Allah manifested in the flesh. So you see the chairman actually has a bold expression of old Clark Kent. I mean, did I say Superman? You know, he says, if I can get you to thinking, you will save yourself. In other words, if I can stop you from thinking like a slave, if I can stop you from thinking like your slave master, your slave maker, your slave breaker, your slave holder, if I can get you to thinking, then you will save yourselves. Because that's the problem. We got too many adversarial thoughts that we've been trying to demonstrate. Listen now, I say we've been thinking like our slave master, slave maker, slave breaker, slave holder, slave catcher. One of them, most of our people been in one category. How have you been thinking like your slave master? Well, that's easy. By allowing somebody else outside of you to master your mind. And you now trying to demonstrate that same foolery. You know, same thing goes for the slave maker and the slave breaker. Because your thoughts are not thoughts that allow you to free somebody. Your thoughts have now become succumbed to being enslaved. Mental slavery caused you to make slaves out of your people. This is Willie Lynchism. So the enemy don't have to come from the outside. We talk about neo-colonialism. You see, same demonstration. That slave making NBC that's always trying to promote what Massa said. What about the slave breaking demonstration? Those who own the manifest and have a mentality to where they want to break your consciousness. Just because they content with being a slave, they want you to be like them too. So they want to break all the thoughts of free thinking that you have in you. Oh man, you ain't gonna never be able to do that. That's impossible. What you mean start your own nation? You know, that's that slave breaking mentality. I'm showing you so you can identify with these people when you come into contact. I'm talking about the one that look like us, the Oreos out there. You know, so when you talk about slave catcher, well, what is a slave catcher? This is one that goes out with the mentality to basically catch somebody, you know, and bring them into the paradigm of enslavement through various forms of religious, political, you know, and all other type of social and fraternal type of degrees. You see, to keep you comfortable. And listen, family, we're not trying to come on a level of negativity and trying to attack nobody. We're just telling you the forms that this mindset comes in. Invasion of the body snatchers, huh? So now that you know how that slave maker, slave breaker, and slave catcher operate, then what about the slave holder? You know, those who come up with those ideas that constantly promote our enslavement to keep our people on the hamster wheel, running nowhere fast. Oh yeah, we're gonna make it plain today. We're gonna make these lessons applicable today. So Prophet Noble Drew Ali say, if I can get you to thinking. Now that's a big if, because we see our people still, the wheel of industry has still not begun to turn in the hearts and minds of our people right now so that they will be in our favor. That's why he said that he was going to stop the European from thinking. He going to stop that European thought pattern that our people have within themselves, thinking that they the new slave, master slave, breaker slave, catcher, slave holder. He going to stop that and get us to thinking for ourselves. And that's how we'll save ourselves. You see? The greatest rival to our liberation is the lower self to the higher self. So it went on, it says heroism. Heroism comes in many forms, characters, and mindsets. See, we address some of them, right? Some of our people think the slave maker, slave breaker, slave holder is heroes. They'll say, no, that ain't how we really thinking, but the actions speak louder than words. Because everything that comes from that special arena, most people accept it without doubt or contradiction, no question. But let one of us bring something to them, then, oh, we need to vet that. I need a source for the information that you say, and yet you eat everything up, you know, that you receiving in your mental diet, you know, and all that toxicity that you taking in. But that's a whole nother message as well. So anyway, it says heroism. Heroism comes in many forms, characters, and mindsets. Like a newborn naturally seeks to grow into semblance of the parents from whence it came, or which it came. The soul of man instinctively seeks for its source of creation. Although neither youth can define this powerful sense and natural intuition to be greater, stronger, and independent, it is in the realization and a part of nature to grow and explore possibilities. In the innocence of a humane society, this spontaneous growth will venture past the alluring and baited traps of heroism. It is in the nature of man to ponder upon what he will do when he becomes greater. Some of our people like to ponder what they can do if they can only get their hand on $1 million. And I keep telling our people, well, $1 million is not the issue. Because if we get 60 million of our people to come together with just $1, that's $60 million. They don't be hearing me though when I say that. So we let you know that money ain't a thing. That's not an issue. It's a lack of unity. It's a lack of trust. It's a demarcated thought pattern that calls us to set up our captors as rivals to the Most High. They done instilled the fear of God in our people so much so to where they scared to think free thoughts. They whisper now about cancel culture. I told you y'all keep thinking this game, and I gotta bring this demonstration out one more time because I don't think they heard me with this. Then they got a new form of voters intimidation. Well, now if you considered a felon, you've been convicted of a felony, then all of a sudden you ain't got no business voting. All right, we're gonna come back. We didn't tell you this was in there. This is almost like the batteries not included, but you didn't know that until later. Now you got to get the batteries that's sold separately, right? You don't always get that warning. Sometimes you have to figure it out. You see? And that's the same thing. What you doing voting, Negro? What you doing voting, black man, colored man? Don't you know you property? Let me send you to jail a few days. And what this does, now that we done lock you up, we putting you out there as an example. So it's a public lynching, basically, of anybody that's considered property. So now, all right, They ain't gonna get up there and do no voting, no. When they really didn't have the power to do it anyway. It's called a granted privilege. But you believe that if you elect somebody that look like you, they're gonna be your hero. You're gonna have some heroism going on there. They're gonna save you if you make them a mayor and they look like you. They're gonna save you. You know, they don't even know that the word mayor go back to ancient Kemet. That means you was the ruler, executive ruler. When you obeyed the high dictates of life. You see? Let me go on. It says, dear students, having now completed the first, second, and third adept degree, you have been prepared to follow the last prophet of Ali into the fourth adept degree, and it's actually fifth, heroism. But why heroism? And what on man's earth is a hero? The hero, no matter what form it is made, is strictly created from an earthbound thought to be a cultural pacification. Didn't I just say that earlier? A hero is an idea or concept restricted solely to what a person believes, dreams, wishes, thinks perhaps, maybe it's possible. So this is what one is playing. They playing with your yo-yo. You know, well, if you believe it, then you can get you a black president. You know, you can get you some of your people in positions of power. I call it pseudo power, since everybody want to throw the word pseudo around. A hero, again, is an idea, concept. Now, when you're dealing with this here, it's something you dream of, you long for. So somebody is playing on it. This is called marketing, family. Somebody playing on what you believe. They playing on what you're dreaming for. They know what you wish for. They know you want to be free. Oh, man. And they take that demonstration and use it like a carrot on a stick. And every 4 years, after another situation comes on the manifest, you think you done moved closer to freedom. You just moved another slot into the egg crate. Okay, so it says, you know, even you think if it's possible. They got our people messed up so bad. Some of our people say we'll never be free. Some of our people say we'll never unite. It's impossible to get our people to unite. Well, how is it so possible for everybody else to be united? I went out a few days ago and I had a bite to eat at this little place I normally go to. And I ain't never seen our people demonstrate like this, but I seen a few Latinos. And they always been this way. Regardless on how less they may have. I seen like about 9 of them. They was eating. When they came in that demonstration, you know, they was laughing, they was smiling. You can tell they was content with where they are. And they basically was pulling chairs for each other. You know what I mean? Like I'm looking at them in this straight real brotherhood that I'm looking at these particular ones. And it's a natural thing for them to demonstrate like that. Now they ain't putting on for the restaurant. That's instilled in them. I know this. I'm talking about from Cubans to Puerto Rican to, you know, Dominican. They may have a little odds against each other, demarcation, but within their particular groups and at certain time, they will come together as a conglomerate, you know, as well and come under unity. I've seen that too. You know, when you look at the Haitian element, you know, a lot of them demonstrate the unity. You go into the islands of Jamaica, you see the same thing being demonstrated. You go into Africa, you have different demarcation, but within the tribe, you know, a lot of time you see some unity, even outside of that You know, Africans honor each other as African when they come over here to the United States of America. But it's believed that it's impossible for us to ever come together. And in the midst of talking about unity, rather than demonstrating the unity, the first thing many do that have a demarcated thought pattern like to do, they like to come and say, man, you know, it ain't gonna happen. It can be a process of it going on and say, no, this ain't gonna happen. See, that's the slave maker, slave breaker, slave holder syndrome that we was talking about. Thinking like the colonizer and don't even know that you're thinking like. So it says, as a rule, heroes are the historic and current promotions from the conquerors, rulers, and heads of tribes and families. Although a hero may be mediated and immortalized after death, it is impossible for the theatrics of heroism to transcend the cause of death. Yet through human ignorance, the marketing of heroes in any society can be made to appear almost as necessary as breathing air is to the body. The creation, advancements, and decline of heroes and sheroes are very dependent and firmly affixed upon the whims of society and the public. They're always looking for the next scapegoat. Somebody that's willing to bear the burden. Somebody that's willing to sacrifice. And now people don't went so mad now they know, you know, the physical Yehoshua, you know, they ain't seen him return. We know that he came in the person of Prophet Noble Ali. We know that Prophet Noble Ali or Yehoshua will come again. But those who haven't seen that special one or know who it is that has returned and came on the mountain, they're still waiting for Jesus. And meantime, in between time, they'll sacrifice each other. You know, put them on the altar. Anything that I can get out of you, you know, basically, when it comes to sanity and mind, though I'm mentally, physically, or spiritually enslaved, as an energy vampire, you know, I want to put you on the cross. Because I ain't seen Jesus yet, so I'm going to crucify you. This is what's going on with our people. They're looking for a scapegoat. So this is why they have that mindset of accepting the pacification of heroes. So it says, now prophets should never be confused in the advertised stages of heroes. It says heroes are determined by the passions and objectives of society, but all people, both major and minor, are ordained by the great God and verified on earth by Comedian masterminds. When prophets are made into heroes, in the hearts and minds of men, they become worshipped as external gods. Didn't I just tell you that? That's a no-no. This is paganism, and also how popes become saints a few centuries after death, and Jesus becomes a pale-skinned Lord and Savior. Hero for short. The majority of gods honored in the world's foremost religious creeds are largely based upon the spirits of man-made heroes, and sometimes matriarchs or heroines of the past, right? From the ancient laws of Ma'at down through the world of Islam, the foremost of all laws has always been only Allah, the great God, is due the praise from the nearest place to meet. This eliminates pagans and subsequent heroes. Otherwise, heroism established upon some supernatural misinterpretations of the past, now made martyrs, are presented to the ignorant to be bound down and worshipped as gods, deities, holier than thou art beneath them. And from some pulpit podium, the very next Holy Ghost thing this pagan hears from their man-made hero god is, it says, for a new generation of the Lord God, I thank you, Savior, for this beatdown of heroisms and fears and phantom hopes. Old Halle Berry. Amen. Pow, bam, whack. I like how the chairman, put the little comic expressions in there. I know y'all remember that. Bam, boom, pow. Yeah, we had one of our Moorish kin that like to talk against the government a lot of time. He like to demonstrate that a boom to the bam, bam, boom. Moorish kin know who we talking about. We ain't gonna name drop right now. But anyway, it says today, through these 7 adept degrees, as taught to the last prophet Noble Drew Ali, we are honored to follow Ali's edification, demonstration, and 10-year education as guided by Allah's masterminds from years to 1902 to 1912. These adept degrees 1 through 7 are necessary lessons of assurance for the gigantic missionary work Ali has been ordained to fulfill. Right? It says this ordained pathway leads to how Ali would later save his nation by teaching them to think in order to save themselves. Students, let us now follow Ali's footsteps through the 5th adept degree, heroism. Acton's adept lesson 417. Right? So the chairman goes into the commentary here. Listen to this. It say the sacred temple, and I like the way the chairman augment these teachings and bring them up to date. That way we're not thinking about 2,000 years ago and we cannot make them applicable to now. Everything in here we can make applicable to the way that we live right now. Let me see something too. Just check on my audience. Okay, we want to give honors to our brother Avenge the Ancestors, Henry Galloway, brother Ephraim L. Yassine Bay, Seth Smith Bay, Dark Side official TV show. Who that is? Okay, I see who that is. Give honors to all of our Moorish kin. It's demonstrating. So let me go back to the drawing. Okay. Make sure I want to pull the actual document up. Oh, here it is up here. So it says the sacred temple. The sacred temple is the heart and mind, temple of perfected man, 3rd heaven, the 6th and 7th chakras, the soul of man, an adept chamber referred to in Ali's past 4th adept degree. Right? It says groves were rich in statues and monuments, shrines. Here Ali loved to walk, think, and meditate and pray. So the sacred temple that we're talking about is not some building that is dealing with brick and mortar. This sacred temple has to deal with man himself. But this temple, in its blueprint, resides, so to speak, above the neck. You see? In the mind, in the heart, in the consciousness. So in the consciousness, we can remember the time when we were God, if we can tap into our consciousness. In this sacred grove that we call the mind and consciousness of our divinity, it is rich in statutes and monuments and shrines. This is one reason why our people are so egotistical. Because they are acting out subconsciously. They know they come from a lineage of rulers. They know they come from a lineage of conquerors and warriors and so forth and so on. So you always find our people in a level to where they have to feel like they are trying to prove something. This is why the ego is so strong in our people. This is why they'll kill each other. It's really a negative reaction based upon, the God consciousness that is within them trying to express itself, and they're not being conscious or allowing it to. So on one hand, the God consciousness is trying to raise, one to a state of consciousness, or rise to the occasion. On the other state, one is trying to drag themselves down into the lowest of the low and debase themselves. So it's like you're trying to tear yourself apart. Didn't they say in chapter 1 of our Moorish Holy Quran that man fell because he tore himself from the great God Allah just to gratify his lower self? Okay. So again, it says, and after he had conquered self, he talked with nature. Now notice the conquering of the self is going within the self to conquer the self. You don't conquer yourself by trying to conquer another man outside of yourself and then think that you heroic. I don't care if you conquering him mentally, if you conquering him physically, or you conquering him spiritually. Anytime you're dealing with that and you're dealing with competition, this is actually allowing yourself to be defeated. By very virtue of you looking at somebody as a worthy foe outside of yourself mean that you think less of yourself. So you feel like this one is somebody to contend with. So look at what it said. Now this neophyte, Yehoshua, after he had conquered self, he talked with nature. See, this is what we try to tell our people, to read the book of creation. This is why we talk about the ancient Comedian or the Egyptian teachings, and we speak on neter in relation to nature. So he talked with nature. He talked with the God within, the human soul. What are the actions of the soul? Thinking, reasoning, willing, understanding, remembrance. Within the nature of the soul is the potential for so much. We call them immortal virtues of the soul. The potential to rise. This is what a seed is planted in the soil of soul, that it may grow apace. But also within that same soul is the potential of one falling. You have the potential to either go 360 degrees into the light or 360 degrees into the darkness. See, we ain't teaching religion over here. We talking about self-mastery. We don't care nothing about no religion. You see? So again, when it says, after he conquered self, he talked with nature. This is why I say you got to be able to read the book of creation. The book of creation tells you that you are the microcosm of the macrocosm. You see? So in these sacred groves, it's stated that the mastermind had been there for 40 days, much like our brother Yeshua, Yehoshua, was in the Piscean records of the Bible. They speak of him being tempted 40 days and 40 nights in the wilderness, right? Moses had his stint of being 40 days and 40 nights. I remember even in the song, I think it was Billie Jean, our brother Michael Jackson said, for 40 days and 40 nights, he was on the scene. People didn't catch that though, right? But anyway, it goes on, it says, note too often, it says, after we have conquered a certain thing or graduated a particular course, we are often deceived into believing our testing is over. And that's the problem right there. And that's why that same test come at you through a door that you have not observed. It says, in actuality, the test of life truly begins. It's only the beginning. It says, once we have completed school, here while in Ali's being prepared for prophethood about the age of 20, was not expecting tests to follow after he had conquered self. It's just like practicing. It's easy to get out there and practice on a football field or a basketball court or a baseball field. But when it's time to get involved in that game and get active, that's where you're going to really see what it is that you think you is, so to speak, right? It says, but in reality, the work and true test cannot begin until after the course has been completed. This is why Ali would later teach his nationals. Prophet Noble Drew Ali taught us, study self. And after you have well studied self, ask me what to study next. Again, I would say study self. Then the guide in Ali's mind guides are other thoughts, reflections, conceptions, or social conditions being suffered at the behest of rulers amongst fallen humanity. It says, took chains, carnal laws, courts, rules, and regulations, and bound him and foot, hand and foot, his thinking and will, and cast him into the den of hungry beasts, of unclean birds and creeping things, society of heroes, false gods, and slavery. Notice it say, bound him hand and foot. Now we know the hand is symbolic to the mind. So if somebody bind your hands, some people say, well, his hands tied. You know, the will. Man, one bind you in your thinking and your will, then what is it that you can accomplish? You thinking on the level that is hopeless. If somebody has stopped you from thinking, you believe that they are God, that their power extends beyond the great God that is within you. We ain't talking about no spook God outside of you, because we don't worship gods or serve gods outside of the self. That's polytheism. That's the many gods you're talking about when you're serving gods outside of the self. We talking about the God within. That's what we teach over here. So it says the den was dark as night. National oppression, brutality, degradation, obliquely. No, pardon self, obliquely. It says shame. The wild beasts hollow, and birds in fury scream, and reptiles and creepy snake-like thoughts hiss. Oh man, this is expressing the thought patterns, lions and tigers and bears. Oh my. We're talking about the thought patterns, that we are dealing with when one is in the den, as dark as night. Other NBCs that think just like you when you a slave. That's what they talking about. People that's thinking on that level. All types of characters and characteristics being expressed. And you wonder why at ancient Kemet there were expressions showing the head of the animal upon the body of the human being, or the head of the human upon the body of the particular animal. You see, all this stuff is symbolic. Some of it had to do with self-mastery. Some of it have to do with, where one overcomes, particular characteristics. And some, just have to do with one basically expressing certain characteristics of those particular animals. But anyway, it says all Negroes, blacks, and colored people should beware of holidays. We got a lot of them getting ready to come up now. They're talking about Black Friday, Black Friday, Black Friday. Which they call Good Friday on certain aspects of expression. But Friday ain't good if you don't know who made you. Friday ain't good if you don't know that Friday represents a cycle age. Or did I say a cycle of perfection? You see? It says all Negro, black, and colored people should be beware of holidays and all the winds and wares and whys associated with each their celebrations. Firstly, being chattel property, they have never had the power to create nor sustain their own national holiday or holiday, holy day or holiday, and all those black days and months have been are created or about them and not for them, to keep them proud, black, and dead. Still, all holidays have an origin. In fact, the word holiday itself got its origin from celebrating of various religious holy days. From this beginning, it can now become easier to understand how the majority of today's heroes, it says, are also accepted and praised in many forms of holidays. A few examples of Christ Mass and Easter, And Easter is only the holiday when the rabbits, the only holiday when rabbits are allowed to lay eggs. A Sunday is now a weekly holiday used to commemorate the 2,000-year Roman law for execution of an African Jew. Today, this same Moabite descendant, whose genealogy can be traced in their holy Bible, has been denationalized, made into a hero of Christianity, and showcased as a pale-skinned god of Europe. This is the foremost heroism in the West today, in which all Negroes, blacks, and colored people known absolutely nothing, since common sense is not so common. It stands to reason the idolizing of heroes and worshiping of false gods is largely based upon fears, and man's greatest fears rests Sunday, right? An old, extremely obese European saint wearing a white beard and a red snowsuit bring gifts down folks' chimneys worldwide one night in December, upon the ignorance of the lower self and the illusions of the world. Goodness gracious. So it says here, and Ali said, who is it that did bind me thus? Why did I, a mastermind, a student adept, a self-conqueror, meekly sit to be bound down with chains? This is what we have to ask ourselves. How in the world did we get in this condition? Because you know some people say we'll be slaves forever and a day, right? You know, it was intended that we be 3/5 of a human being forever and a day, right? It says, what can be used to guide, direct, and control the thought patterns and beliefs of humanity? I tell you, none has the power to bind the human soul, right? Man's capacity to think, reason, will, and understand. Of what are fetters and shackles, chains and restraints, bonds, yokes, ties, confinements made? I'll tell you what fetters and these shackles and chains were. It represents fear. False evidence appearing real. Think of some of the shackles that have held our people in bondage while not actually being physical. What has held us back from being a people? These are your chains. Disunity, division, distrust, a lack of love. All these are fetters and chains that restrain and bond us. These are yokes and ties. It says these are made from cultural holy pooi, social or world order perspectives. All fetters and restraints are when sovereign powers of a government become exploitative, cruel, and abusive to citizenry and defenseless humanity. In these modern days, there are thousands of global chains of heroism which are made from links of various heroes and sheroes. And so the chairman went into certain aspects, but music is my hero, man. We was talking about that earlier today too. That's a whole nother measure. Music ain't even what it used to be. You know, and they set them ones up there as celebrities and tear them down. Now one is just a, insurance policy. Posthumously release an album, after they took off the manifest and they get more from it. So it says, baby, just give me some sounds. It can be gospel, jazz, rock and roll, blues, oldies, but goodies. Please don't leave our soul music and my hip hop. No man, don't touch that FM 101 dial. BET a soul train, bring it back. Child, we about to blow the roof off this mighty fine. You don't feel that beat. Y'all must be got a hole in y'all soul. At the same time in history, every nation has suffered slavery because they no longer honor the creed and principles of their forefathers. During the times of oppression, subjugation, and domination, especially of the NBC in the West, various forms of sedations are used to pacify the hearts and minds of the sufferers. After all, nobody enjoys being a slave unless their mind has been made to agree to the servitude. The Willie Lynch theory alone has proven it is amazing to witness how music, games, and entertainments amongst slaves would become psychologically tranquilizing and acceptable forms of sedations, especially when this societal anesthesia, or where he said anesthetizes, it says are generated by slaves themselves, unbeknownst to the slaves. However, no matter how lovely to the ear, pleasant to the taste, or acceptable to the smell, when the music has been created by slaves during the time of slavery, the fact remains it is still slave music. Or in the words of Marcus Garveyite named Bob Marley, all the various classes of 4 centuries of music made by the so-called NBC mentioned above, there is not one of these songs of freedom. No matter how widely accepted heroism, no matter what form it may derive, does not have the power to redeem, save, nor free. And it was said, and in his might, the almighty power of man is determined by the fruition of his deific will. That's what we was talking about earlier. The basis and the authority of being a true nation, being able to govern self under self-determination and government. This depends on, do you have it in you to link your will with deific will? But it says he rose and what feared, he thought were chains, while only worthless cords had parted at his touch. You ever notice what happened when somebody was always scared of the bully and they beat up the bully? Then, all fear was gone then, right? It's the same thing when it comes to the illusions of the lower self. Don't let nobody control you, by threatening you, with external expression, so to speak. It says, and then he laughed and said, the chains that bind me to the carcasses of the earth, it says, are forged in a fancy shop made of air and welded in illusion's fire. If man will stand and use the power of will, and this is our subject matter, his chains will fall like worthless rags. For will and faith is stronger than the stoutest chains that men have ever made. Powerful. And Ali stood erect among the hungry beasts and birds and said, he stood up amongst his people, who had these thought patterns as being on the level in beast mode. He said, what is this darkness that envelops me? He rose from amongst his people. He broke the chain. He became the first one that was actually to accept Moorish manumission. And then he told us he was setting us up to basically receive this. And many of those during his time didn't comprehend it. You know how they say the light dwell within darkness, but darkness comprehended not. It says, 'tis but the absence of light. And what is light? 'Tis but the breath of Allah. It says the highest actions of purity and right order are love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. The omnipresence of this infinite government is the breath of Allah, better known to the seeds of the great God as wisdom. When one elevates inwardly or opens their hearts and minds to reap the great God's care, then they can walk in the light and be the breath made flesh because they are themselves the light. Those that strive to master the illusions of the world outside the knowledge of self have certainly imprisoned their souls with the bars of fear and chains of doubt. These are the captives who remain enveloped in the darkness of ignorance at the discretion of their will, vibrating in the rhythm of rapid thought. It says, and then he said, let there be light. This is one trying to create something. This is what we have to say. Let there be light and come out of that state of darkness. It says, be conscious, think, and will yourself to be the breath. That's what let there be light means. Be conscious, think, and will yourself to be the breath. It says, and with mighty will, he stirred the ethers up and their vibrations reached the plane of light. Because you need a torchlight when it comes to freedom, that torchlight for freedom, right? When you're moving and coming up through the underground railroad, so to speak, of the lower self. You need some light. So it says, and when wisdom speaks and is heard, it then has been spoken from the highest plane of spirit life. Just as then has ran its course, like unto spirit man, this plane of thought is also from the everlasting of the past to the never-ending days to come, and there was light. This is how you will yourself out of darkness into the marvelous light. It said the darkness of that den of night, unconsciously void of right thinking. This is the state that a lot of our people are in. They are unconscious, they are asleep, and they have no thoughts or desire to even think right. They content. They're going to eat, drink, and be merry. Keep it moving, right? It says, became the brightness of a newborn day because truth has been spoken and manifested. So when you hear that truth that draw you, it also would drive you. It says, and then he looked to see the beasts and the birds and creeping things, and lo, they were not. And Ali said, of what is soul afraid? Fear is the chariot in which man rides to death. And when he finds himself, remember, the highest heights are gained by those who have reached the greatest depths. And man finds himself where he can solve his problems best. The lower realms are filled with deceptions and treachery, duplicity, pretense, and fraud in the semblance of truth, redemption, salvation, and government. As God, man will find himself where his devil reigns. Within the chamber of the dead, he learns that he has been deceived. His chariot was a myth, and death a fancy child. But someday all men's lessons will be learned. And from the den of unclean beasts and birds and creeping things, he will arise to walk in light. He's going to come up out of that condition of the muck and the mire. And Ali saw a ladder made of gold on which he climbed, and at the top, white-robed priests awaited him. See, this is that 12-step ladder. When you get to the top of it, that priest that he met was really himself. That's who was guiding him all the while. An angel is a thought of Allah manifested in the flesh, just as a prophet is. You see, just as the spirit is. So it says again, he stood before the council bar, the judicial assembly of justice, judgment, balance, reason, self-mastery. Again, no word was said. Again, the hierophant reached forth his hand to bless, and he placed in Ali another scroll in his hand. It says, and on this one was written heroism. See? The Logos had encountered fear in all of his phantom form, a phantom host, right? And the chairman stated here, all fears are founded upon ignorance. The greatest enemy of fear is knowledge and light of wisdom. Yet fear itself is but an illusion, nothing more. Still, fear never comes alone, for it comes, it orchestrates a congregation of superstitions, falsehood, fallacies, and misconceptions. Once fear is made camp in the minds of man, it commands an army of phantasm, meaning these are thoughts that are being dictated by fear. It says, with which the unenlightened must contend, terror, worries, nightmares, phobias, anxieties, distress, apprehension, dreads, to name a few. Fear casts a scent that attracts crowds of delusions, deceptions, and figments of the imagination. And in the conflict, a mastermind always achieves the victory. This is why Ali would later teach his nationals to study self, and after you have studied next again, I would say study. Well, after you well studied self and ask me what to study again, I would say study self. I like this right here. Every victory over self gives added strength. And you see that there? Time wait for no man. Time never was when man was not. So Islam Moors are at this particular time, what we want to do, we want to open up the floor to our family, to be able to give their drawings. *6 your phone if you're coming from our conference call number, or if you would like to say something, you can always put a drawing out here. I'm gonna put the link in the chat like I always do, and invite ones that would like to respectfully speak. So praise be to Allah. So star 6 your phone, more. This is a powerful demonstration. The power of the will breaks all chains of bondage and enslavement. Islam.
Islam.
Islamism.
Some gratitude.
Yeah, you gotta mute something out. You getting a little echo, brother Marvin.
Okay, let me. Okay, that better?
Yes, sir.
Gratitude. Yeah, this is Dr. Marvin Elvis, Consul General of the Texas Consulate. Praise and honor have been given. It's a very powerful class that you have here, National Assistant Grand Sheikh. And you're speaking on the power of the will. Yeah, the power of the will. And like I said, this is a very powerful illustration. When you think about it, the will is one of the actions of the soul. And you know that the soul is thinking, reasoning, understanding, willing, and remembrance. So when we're using the tools that the great God has given us, well, actually it goes further back than that. When we, if we remember who made us, that would be like the beginning, or that will be the beginning of freeing ourselves from those fetters that we thought that held us. As we think, our prophet said, and you spoke on it. If he could get us to thinking, we could save ourselves. And this is part of thinking. We're not thinking when we think about like the Europeans, think about the slave holder, slave catcher, slave master. When we're thinking like them, and we're thinking like them if we believe that we are Negroes, colored folk, black people, African American, all those names that delude to slavery. Yes. So the prophet says he's going to stop the Europeans from thinking and get us to thinking for ourselves. And when we are thinking for ourselves, we are definitely not thinking like the Europeans. We don't see any of his holidays the same, any of his celebrating of sports, competition. All those things are fetters that bound us to this manifest. We know that we have a physical part. We love this earth. As long as we are in this physical. So it's as above, so below. Spirit being above, the manifest being below. So we know that our manifest must show that we are thinking. That we are a thought of the great God of Allah. It's a very powerful message, very powerful. And you covered a lot of ground. And going through this chapter, with the commentaries. That was very powerful. Because our chairman, he always makes things plain for us. This is what the prophet did for us. He established this Moorish American government. And in this Moorish American government, our Grand Chairman, our Grand Sheikh, our National Assistant Grand Sheikh, our Grand National Secretary of State, Grand Secretary of Treasury, our Grand Mufti, Assistant Grand Mufti, and all of the Muftis, all of the divine ministers here, are bearing witness to that there is no God but the great God. Having gone through what we've gone through, there has to be a great God. Because now we are thinking like God, And, with this lesson here, we can go on. Because once we become aware of who made us, become aware of the fact that we were made in the image of the great God, knowing that we are gods, we are thought of the great God, then we can, as you say, with that mighty will, stand up erect, you know what I mean, and walking in the light. And with that, I'm going to say gratitude for allowing me to speak so some of the other more can come on and give them a Islam.
In Islamism, brother, we give honors to you for that droid, Dr. Marvin Evans Bay. Praise be to Allah. Islamism without the schism. All right. Is there any other more that would like to come forth and exercise their fire? Islam. Can our family that's on the conference call hear us? Is there any more that would like to give their droid?
Islam.
Go ahead, Mo.
Islam, Mo. Islam.
Oh, God, you have to go first. Praise Allah.
All right, I'll go. I would like to ask, what exactly is the question on the floor tonight before I get started, so I can make sure I'm on point?
There is no question on the floor. The subject matter is dealing with the power of the will breaks all chains of bondage and enslavement. But we came from our ayat in the fifth brotherhood test dealing with heroism. And the ayat is, if man will stand and use the power of will, his chains will fall like worthless rags. For will and faith are stronger than the stoutest chains that men have ever made. Islam.
Gratitude, God, man. I just wanted to be sure. This is Sister Cammy. I'm in Michigan. I rise, honor, and praise the great God Allah. I honor His Prophet Noble Drew Ali, officials, citizens, Moors here, there, and everywhere, especially my Moorish kin. And I would say gratitude to the Mo for letting me go first. I wasn't sure who got here first, and I was trying to be respectful in the demonstration. That will, you mentioned the lowest, reaching the highest heights after being as far as the lowest depths. And the willpower to be free, and that willpower to remove all of those thoughts, actions, words, and deeds that allude to slavery. Thinking and speaking get into existence. And when you're at that lowest point in the demonstration or your journey at that time, Allah will pull you up. Meditation being the highest form of prayer. It's talking to Allah about what the situation is. Allah will give you that clarity of thought. Put your will in Allah and put your strength, get your strength from Allah. The ayah 5, who is it that did find me thus? Why did I meekly sit to be bound down with chains? The slavery, the mental slavery, being bound down with chains. It's been hundreds of years, centuries of that mental slavery plaguing the people, a nation of people. You mentioned the money, that Roman dollar, getting together some millions and have all of them give $1, and we have multi-millions as far as the government. That money, it'll burn up in your pocket if you don't have the will to get out of that slavery, because you'll spend it like a slave.
Prophet said that the only form of slavery we suffering from today is that mental slavery. When that stimulus stuff was going on with Rome, giving it right back to them. You notice all the sales and stuff for the TV would hit around stimulus time. That European dollar and the will to go with that 12 crown jewels instead of that Negro mentality that puts that Roman dollar first. Our gross national product is wisdom, and the wisdom to choose a lie over the Roman dollar and the prophet's teachings. The lowest of the low as far as being at a low point. And the meditation, which is prayer and speaking to Allah and the prophet's teachings will get you in touch with yourself and pull you up out of those Negro thoughts. And a lot of times you'll start reflecting upon it and you'll realize that the Negro thoughts and that Negro mental slavery condition help you get at that low point. And letting it go will bring you up out of it. Financial woes. And you think about it and you say that Negro thought pattern with worshiping that Roman dollar as a God outside of myself and got me low like this here. And changing the thought pattern as far as who binded me thus. Yes, Rome binded us hundreds of years ago, but now we are binding ourselves and we're being bound down by our brothers and sisters that are still unconscious, and they give that to their children generations and generations later. So that mental slavery piece, and then bound down by the lower self, bound down by the chains of the mad human drama that we call society. When you are uplifted and you live in your higher self in this theocratic government, and you're part of this here government, instead of other governments that bind you as less than a citizen or not even being a citizen, those points will come very far and in between until the point that they're non-existent. When you conquer all of that and you are a hero within yourself, and you're a hero as far as a God state, the whole point is Allah can do it. Put your whatever it is, put it in Allah's hand, or Allah have His will with your spirit, your soul, your thought process, your flesh, everything. And as far as bounding others, that competition demonstration and wanting to be like the slave master, bounding another god or goddess, that mentality goes with the mental slavery. Focus on yourself, get yourself right, and then all the other things will fall into place. And you all know I've been at some low points, and you all have also gotten me through them. And I say gratitude for all of the love and prayer. Gratitude.
In gratitude, Sister Cammie, Islamism. Praise be to Allah for that measure. All right. I think Brother Michael Morbay was trying to get in there.
Islam. Yes, this is Divine Minister Michael Morbay out of the North Carolina Councilman. Praise be to Allah, honor to our Prophet, Noble Durali, and honor to our citizens, our officials, and our government. Praise be to Allah. Well, it's a wonderful time that we're living in. And that was a grand demonstration that you gave to us, letting us know that, we are born gods at birth. And then we are programmed to be less. Okay, see, when we look at the will, we have to seek the triune Allah of will and love. See, and we know that Allah is leading on the victory is sure. And he lets us know that there is nothing stronger than the will of man. The will is what gives us the ability to overcome and accomplish everything that we must overcome. You were demonstrating about being heroism, and hey, that's just another foe, because it doesn't allow us to concentrate on the great God within and His will. His will is for us to be in harmony and in tune with His will. This is what we call the deific will. You see, so we use the willing to understanding of the truth. See? And through the spirit of the great God, see, He gives us self-determination. So we have to, first of all, overcome our foes within by using our will. You see, the will allows us to exercise through the spirit of self-determination. And in our adept degrees, we find the solution of love divine. And that's the golden cord that connects us all to all living things, to each other. Being that the great God is our creator, He lets us know that we're the only creature to establish relationships based upon understanding and love. And it is with this understanding which determines our will power that is made for us to overcome heroism. See, we don't dwell on being heroes because of the simple fact that the great God is within us. And we know that He has power over all things. So we go within, and He gives us the self-determination to be able to overcome heroism, to overcome the slave mentality, to overcome the false images that have been presented to us that makes us want to go along with the thought of someone else in our minds, so that we can recognize who we really are. Okay, so we have to always be aware and use the will of self-determination within ourselves to overcome the enslavement that we have been programmed into thinking that, hey, if he can do it, I can do it. See, we suffer from that slave mentality. That was a lower self element that's been placed into our minds, so that we'll say that, well, hey, I got to get mine. And that means I have to shoot somebody, rob somebody, steal for somebody to get mine. Okay, that's all right. You see? But we know through our principles of love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, there's no justice in that type of mentality. There's no love in that type of mentality. And you cannot fool yourself. You know, this is why you have what they call a conscience. And when you do these lower things, you think about it, you try to close it out, but you know you're not wrong. You know you're not right. You know you're wrong. So why are you going to live a life of being wrong when you know that you have the will to be right? So we have to exercise the mind's action for thinking, willing, reasoning, remembering, and understand that we can be the will of the great God. And we can be one with him. All we have to do is recognize him within our highest self. And our highest self is the mother of virtues and the harmonies of life that breed justice, mercy, love, and right. So within this, we find our mastermind. You know, we bring our mind and our body and our soul and our nationality and our divine creed, the 5 fifth components that makes us whole and make us complete. You know, and then everything is Moorish. See, that's the crown of everlasting life that we wear, being the will of the great God manifest. Gratitude for the class, God, man, and we love you. Peace and love.
And gratitude for the measure, brother. Praise be to Allah. All right. Is there any other Moorish Muslim that would like to come forth and exercise their fire? This is the Moorish perspective. Islam.
Islamism. Dr. Leo Lowry Bay, Vice Consul General, South Carolina Consulate. On this day I rise, I give praise to the great God of Allah. Give honor to the Prophet, Noble Drew Ali. Give honor to our dear Craig Moorish American government. I give honor to the official black government. Give a special honor to the citizens. Give a special honor to all councils throughout Moorish America. Give a special honor to National Assistant Grand Chief for hosting another grand demonstration. Moorish respected. Give honor to all the Moors spoke for me. To all the Moors who will speak after me. Give honor to all those who work for class tonight. Just give honor to everything Moors. Islam. Well, in relation to subject matter, you know that to the will, that the soul is obedient to the will of the user. And so, what are the seeds or thoughts that we plant within the soul of the soul going to manifest what it is that's being told to do. So, whether our thoughts are negative or positive, the soul's going to carry out those special thoughts and manifest it. You know, that a special thought physically on a physical plane. So that's why we told to govern our thoughts and make sure our thoughts are in harmony with love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Because as God and goddesses, we have the ability to bring creation on and manifest, and all creation begins with a thought. You know, so you can bring your thoughts are not in harmony with the 5 principles, love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice, and you can bring something on a manifest that's of the neither world, that lower self, thus as El Creator and Big Governor, you're responsible for bringing forth, governing that which you bring in manifestation of creation. You know, and so, and we also told that the sin lies in the wish and the desire, not the act. So if you harboring or thinking negative thoughts, you know, and even though you don't carry out that special negative thought physically on physical plane, you still sin just for harboring those thoughts, because it's wish and the desire of thought activity that takes place in the mind. Again, thoughts are the cause of it all. And we have within us 30 characteristics of personality of our ancestors, going back 4 generations, on our mother's side and father's side. So if ancestor 29 was an alcoholic or smoker or a negative person, or a robber, a bank robber, and you start having thoughts, of drinking or smoking, or want to do harm to somebody, if you're not like that, you're not that type of person, then you start having those thoughts. Those are not your thoughts. So you have to use the will to reverse the polarity of those that you thought. If not, you feed into those thoughts, or drinking, or doing something negative, harming somebody, or smoking. If you never do them things, and you start having those thoughts and you follow through on those thoughts, then, you get that special ancestor strength and it moves up the line to answer to 28, and thus you become as that ancestor, So again, it's up to us to govern our special universe. When you become, which is your mind, you become conscious with knowledge of the self, your higher self and the lower self. The lower self is just an illusion, has no power, it has no light of its own. Right? It's just a shadow of our higher self, our God self. So it's thought, our thinking, again, governs, the outcome in our everyday life. Whether it's worry, fear, all of it based on thought activity. So as you said earlier, we can't let things outside of itself control us or govern us, because once a mind can't be tricked, it can't be controlled. You see, so we can't get strength from weak sources. So that's why Prophet brought it back. More science, that we gain the strength that we need in order to build what life is meant to build, a temple of perfected man. Because you can't build your temple, with bogus building materials. With the teaching of the West here that was made to keep us enslaved, to the flesh, because the Bible says it's not in the flesh to think or the bones to reason. So in order to free our mind, then we have to tap back to our ancient teaching, raise our thoughts on high to infinite wisdom, cross that borderline from matter, from the physical, back into divinity, the spiritual plane, which is our native plane. We are a spirit seed that came forth from the heart of Allah. Islam, peace and love, and grand class.
Islam and peace and love. Grand man, we give honors to you for the drawing. Praise be to Allah. Islamism without the schism. All right, is there any other more? We got room for one more to come forth and give their drawing. Islam? Islamism.
Can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Loud and clear with divine ears.
I am 5 minutes to watch the time. Right, perfect praise. Give all praise to our Father God Allah, our illustrious Father, the high street of the Ali. Also give honors to as one of flag in time. So thank you for my people and everything that is Moorish. Also extend honors to our Moorish citizens. Islam family. The grand measure is, just applying a measure to the self and understanding who our prophet was. What I see is when a prophet addressed us as children, and him being the founder or the father of the nation, I see that this is a divine roadmap. It's a guide back to our original estate, our original status, who we are, Moorish American. And, coming into the plane of things made manifest in us having this physical composition called this body. The prophet brought us these lessons to usher us back all the way back into our divinity of our divine estate, who we are as a nation of people. And understanding that there's a line that unites divinity and matter. This divine part is our ancient bloodline, right? The matter dealing with this physical body is the vehicle that, I'll say, the illusions of the flesh is being exposed so that one can detach from those things and identify with who you truly are. And this is the portion of that Negro, black, or colored mind state, or that mind. But understanding, when we understand that we're Moorish Americans, this is the degree of entering into, that angelic, understanding what a Muslim is, understanding how to govern the self, how to go in the room of resolution to become resolute on who we are as the people, and make that solidified, and also separating, man is not the body from the soul. Man is not the body nor the soul, but identifying with the spirit. And this is like a alchemy. It's a self-service. So even in this, it's grand because you see the trust that allows give the promise of being of the fulfillment, and the process that it takes, to manifest that, be that, even in the accepting it in oneself, because that Negro mindset and the emotional attachment that came with it. This is what if you're not careful can keep you separated from my Father God a lot, from separated from even the desire to unite with your people. And this is almost that pure love, that pure divine love that overcomes the fear, breaks the shackles, and reminds you of who you are, of who we are. And in that, it's grand. So, man, I'm just thankful, man, for Allah, for all of the angels that's being steadfast, that's sticking to the mission. Gratitude. Peace and love, family.
Yes, sir. And gratitude and peace and love, brother. Mubasa Bay. We give honors to you for that grand draw, and praise be to Allah. Islamism without the schism. Want to give honors to all of our Moorish kin who came forth, and exercised their fire and demonstrated their portion of our story and the glory of being who we are as Moorish American Muslims. We don't seek to be heroes, and we don't seek to demonstrate heroism. We demonstrate heroism, and we are indeed being guided by the Hierophant within. So at this time, we want to call forth our officials, starting with our Assistant Grand National Secretary of Moorish America, Sister Alset Ramunea. Islam, you there, Goddess and Queen? Well, Islamism, we know our sisters about the business of our Father God Allah. What about our beloved National Grand Mufti, Brother Kanshu Mark Herube? Islam, are you there, Grand Man?
Islam, can you hear me?
Yes, sir. Islamism, loud and clear with divine ears.
Gratitude, Grand One, for this mighty class. We rise, first and foremost, giving all thanksgiving, adoration, worship, and praise to the only one worthy of those things, the great God of the universe, our Father God, Allah. We give the highest honors that we can give to his prophet, our prophet, the last prophet in these days and in these times, Prophet Noble Drew Ali, Sheikh Sharif Abdul Ali, the savior of humanity. We give honors to his forerunner, Marcus Mosiah Garvey, and we give honors to his government, our government, the Moorish American government, the government in which we live, according to Act 6. We give honors to the officials of this said government, our divine ministers and swift angels, mufti, royal council, secretaries. We give honors to our citizens, the Moorish Americans. We give honors to our flag, our divine constitution and bylaws, our holy Quran, our Grand National Seal and Grand National Emblem, our Book of Fire. We give honors to everything that is Moorish. We give a special honor to you, National Assistant Grand Chief Dr. Shadu Amidi Medu Shepsuel, for bringing forth the Moorish perspective this evening. We give honors to all of our Moorish kin who have spoken before us, to our Moorish kin that will speak after us. We give honors to you, angels. Continue to give honors where honors are due, and honoring all true and divine prophets. And yes, we give honors to our ancestors as they have come before us, leading the way. We are them today, without a doubt or contradiction, because no one has the power to change man from his descent nature. Praise Allah for that. And also honors to all sympathizers, supporters, family that's tuning in with us this evening, and who will listen to the playback. This is a grand lesson. It's something that's very important about the will. It's part of that three-step ladder of wisdom, will, and love. Wisdom, will, love. Is something very important about, as Aya says, when you bring your will to a certain vibration, certain tune, there's nothing that cannot be done. There's nothing that seems to be unmanageable or unconquerable. It's when you have a certain perspective, it will get done. No matter how long it takes or how hard I have to try, then there's an obvious resolution in one's mind that it's a possibility, and not only is it a possibility, but it is the only outcome. And see that there's a thing about the vibration and how we manifest our own destiny, our own reality. And the will is so necessary and so key, because it's like the amplifier of, you want to call it gravitational pull, magnetic attraction, whatever invisible force that is that brings our reality into a solid manifestation. It has to do with the will. And so this is why we have to have one mind, one unified thought pattern when it comes to our freedom. Because in the time when times get rough, times get tough, when the ups turns the downs, the will is what's going to keep you and hold you along that until the vibrational spike goes back up. The will is what's going to keep you powering through times when things some kind a little bit difficult. When the adversary shows his face, and we know that we're here as soldiers to express that will of Allah and to manifest. Once again, express the will of Allah and to manifest. And when we recognize that we are in Allah one, then we get connected also a thought pattern that the will is creative and is powerful because it is the will of Allah. And we recognize God inside ourselves and create our reality the way we wish to have it. It's the heroism drawn is important because we all have to recognize that, when man is looking for a savior, he must look within, and its name itself. And what he's looking for is devil is also within the name itself. But it's only when we seek Savior love on that throne that all is well. So let us continue as a nation of people, as a people with common background, traditions, standards, and thought pattern as far as our freedom goes. Unite the will of each and every one of us in the purpose of standing and saying that, you know, we are our own people. We do have one free national name in which represents love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice that we can stand by, that we want to stand on. We want to stand on the highest principles known to man. We want to stand on being a clean and pure nation of people, and that is our will. To be in line with the great good, the will of Allah, and bringing on peace on earth, the goodwill towards men. So it's been a grand class this evening, grand Moorish perspective, Moorish King giving us grand lessons. I just want to add that my little part to the grand work that was demonstrated and set out this evening. So gratitude for calling us forth, and gratitude to you, Moorish America, for being here with us and giving us your time, your attention, and respect. We love you. Islam and peace.
Islam and peace to you as well, National Grand Mufti. Gratitude, brother. Praise be to Allah. All right. Now we call forth our Grand National Secretary of State, Sister Sheptu Rakat Ma'at and Pooh, to the Common Bay. Islam, you there, Goddess and Queen?
Well, Sister Thought, can you hear me more?
Oh yeah, we can hear you loud and clear. Islam.
Gratitude. Islam, Islam, Islam. Gratitude. Islam, Moorish Ken. First of all, rise, giving all praises to our Father God Allah, giving honor to our Prophet Noble Durrani Ali, the last prophet in these days and times, giving honor to our Moorish American government, all of our officials, staff, with angels, muftis, divine ministers, most especially our Moorish Ken. Giving honor to all those Moors that spoke before me, all those Moors that will speak after me. Giving a special honor to our Consul General of Texas, Dr. Marvin Edwards Bay, for opening our meeting according to law, to our National Grand Secretary of State of Indiana, Dr. Fayanati New Heteru L, for taking registration and reading our subject chapter for the week. Giving a special honor to all of our family online. Giving honor to our host instructor, our National Assistant Grand Sheikh of Moorish America, Dr. Shedwa Menti and Wahedu Chepsuel, for hosting a grand Moorish perspective class this evening. Dr. Shahid, this was a beautiful demonstration that you brought forth. Much gratitude for reading from Swift Angel number 1, Adept Lesson. And when we look at subject matter, the power of the will breaks all chains of bondage and enslavement. And coming from Ayat 9, if man will stand and use the power of will, his chains will fall like worthless rags, for will and faith are stronger than the stoutest chains that men have ever made. And there were so many directions that I could come from in this special chapter because it's so powerful. And you covered all of these special degrees with clarity, more gratitude. When I was looking at, I first came into Moorish science and I was reading this special chapter. And of course, my mindset was totally on a manifest level as far as, oh my goodness, thinking that someone actually bound down Yehoshua, you know, and you actually in a den with physical beasts, unclean birds, and creeping things. But as we get further into the lesson, as you brought forth, we're dealing with our own negative thoughts that lead to a state of self-enslavement. And the thing about it is, if we're not taught these special lessons, then we don't know. Here in the West, is one of the main jobs is to keep our people buried in that shallow grave of unconsciousness, to keep our people asleep, etc. So we give much honor to Prophet Noble Durrani for bringing us not only these holy and divine instructions, but the tools that we need to be able to
purify our thoughts and minds, and be able to exercise the powers that we have within ourselves as God. So when we look at, even from a manifest level, by us being the Lord of the plane of things made manifest and also the Lord of the plane of soul, we have the power to calm the fury, even in the beast. But as long as we continue to allow ourselves to get taken off by illusion outside of the self, whether it be straying after the gods of Europe, of who we know nothing of. And it's not just those things that's on a manifest level, but the things that we desire, those things that are attractive to us, holding on to hate. All of these things we have got to let go, because evil is not requisite to man. We don't have to have it. And when we come to that realization that in order for us to have that will, that self-determination, that strength within, then we've got to cleanse the thought, get rid of the negative thinking, meditate, contemplate, recognize who you are. What are the strengths and weaknesses that you have, and how do you overcome them? So, and looking at it from the aspect of the soul plane, we have got to, first of all, recognize the various weaknesses or the chains that have kept us bound down, that we demonstrate fear from or doubt or what have you, when we start to isolate what the special weakness or chain is that keeps you bound down, and then chip away at it, recognizing that oftentimes these evils within our mindset have so many different degrees and levels. This is why we can't let ego and vanity set in. Yeah, I didn't conquer jealousy, or I didn't conquer competition. Next thing you know, you might have conquered it on a kindergarten level, but here comes a fourth grade level of that same degree that you thought that you had conquered. So this is why we continue to study. And when we look at the fact that we are here to build that temple of perfected man within ourselves, so we recognize that we are spirit and a part of the great God Allah, that we are children of our Creator. And these lessons, the same thing and degrees that Yehoshua went through, are the same degrees that we're going to have to go through in order to master that state of mind, in order to conquer our own lower self. And it has to be done within. I can't conquer myself by sitting there trying to conquer someone else, as our master instructor spoke about. So when we look at self-determination, recognizing the fact that we have these degrees within ourselves, all we have to do, as the record states, is stand. And the prophet speaks about being upright, independent, and fearless. And you have to do that in order to be able to conquer these lower aspects within our own self. So the lesson is about being able to have your will in tune with the will of the Creator. And then there is nothing that you cannot do as God. But as long as we keep getting distracted, as long as we keep holding on to desires or things that, or greed or whatever it is that we have put priority in our mindset, then in essence we have made that a special God. And I just wanted to bring out the point in reference to the difference between hero and heroism. When you're putting an idol or you're putting something else as greater than the Creator, that's that hero aspect. But if you look, Yehoshua received the degree of heroism. That's fearlessness. That's bravery, or being able to stand no matter what. So when those thoughts come, well, what is my family going to say if I demonstrate this degree? Or am I going to lose my job? These are just little creeping thoughts, little hissing thoughts, little unclean thoughts that we have within our own mindset that, first of all, we got to recognize it and then eliminate it. So there is nothing that we cannot do. Unity is definitely the order of the day in reference to maintaining that pure and clean nation. So we all have to be demonstrating the level of self-determination and recognizing who we are as gods, that we're all children of our Creator, our Father God Allah. So this has just been a grand class, grand measure, Dr. Shaheed. Much peace and love to all of my Moorish kin. Our chairman's not available this evening, and gratitude for calling me forth. Peace and love.
Islamism. And gratitude and peace and love, Grand National Secretary of the State, for that special drawing. It don't get no plainer than that. And that's the key. You know, our people have no idea that they have forged these gods, you know, within their own consciousness. And this is why one continues to be, we can say, wrath is brought to one by those very same gods, you know, that have no power to save, you know, or deliver one from the condition. And we give honors to the drawing on that heroism, you know, as opposed to the hero, you know. And yeah, that's exactly the grand drawing, you know. And we like to refer to it as heroism, which is the same expression to let you know spirit man is in control. So we just say gratitude for that measure, and let us call forth our National Grand Sheik, Dr. Serapis Amin Rael. We give honors to our Grand National Chairman, Dr. Akin Acton Pert M. Heru to the Common Bay. Pert M. Heru to the Common Bay. Islam, you there, Sheik?
Close to the thought.
Uh-oh. That's that Heru.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me, AJ?
Oh, I can hear you.
Number 4 on the floor.
Islam.
Demonstrate that love from earth to heaven. Thank you, Doctor, for making that house call. We want to give a lot of praise and to his love thought and justice ways. Do we give the highest honors to love El Hajj Sharif Abdul Ali. We give honors to everything he is, was, and ever to be. Amen. I am, of course, ecstatic about this lesson. And I, kicked some points that was always with us since we've been traveling, and gave us renewed aspect of Allah's love to us as a people. I was just thinking and listening to that, how our brothers and sisters, whether it be San Salvador, Costa Rica, Mexicans, all these are our kinfolk, make a long story short. They are kinfolk. And we're the only one that's a discarded child. That's not, we're not in our right state of mind, put it like that, we're like in a circle, and all of these brothers and sisters around the world surround us and want to know what's wrong with them. They have really been messed up, and they've been given a chance to get themselves right. Why don't they do the right thing and come on up out of that sleep, that stage of sleep? We will help them if they just get up and want to help themselves. They don't have no determination. They want to lay down in the backyard and listen to them howl like the dogs do, and don't know that they have the God-given talent to rise above this spinning plane, where spinning man does spinning plane, give their praise to Allah and demonstrate the ways of kings and queens of God, of the earth and of the atmosphere. This is what we have been conditioned to accept at this hour. But God knows if you keep pounding in with that hammer, that you had an hammer repetition, hitting one on the side of the head, maybe one day it'll come forth and one to say, thank you, Allah for giving us a drawing that you've given us, and that we'll be the righteous ones that one is looking for. Mommy, I saw a man. There he is, Islam. January 15, 1929. A warning from the prophet. Read in every meeting. Everybody inform all citizens. They must end all radical agitated speeches while at work, in the homes, on the streets. Wealth, peace, and not destruction. Stop flashing your cars to Europeans that cause confusion. Remember, your car is for your salvation. Failure to obey these orders will be a severe consequence. We have to love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. And when these principles are violated, justice then will take its course. Any citizen or group of citizens who hold malicious feelings toward the government or the property or violate the divine covenant of the Moorish movement will receive their reward from Allah for their unjust deeds. All true Moors will and must obey the law as laid down to them by the prophet. They lose confidence in the prophet. See, turning their car and button, when the servants are fed, sent to the state where the prophet found you. This is a holy divine movement founded by the prophet number 2 Ali. And if the prophet is not right, the government is not right. The prophet, therefore, is sending out the divine plea to all Moorish Americans that they do their part of protecting the prophet and the government. This is an everlasting movement founded by the prophet to the will of Allah to redeem his people from their sinful ways. By all the prophet number 2 Ali. This divine warning is supreme laws now and will be enforced by the said government hereby. Islam, Islam, Islam. A holy covenant of the Asiatic nation. You are the children of one father, provided for by his care, and bred to one mother has given thee, sir. That the bonds of affection therefore unite thee with thy brothers, that peace and happiness may dwell in thy father's house. And when ye separate in the world, remember the relation that bindeth you to love and unity, and prefer not the stranger before thy own blood. Thy brothers in adversity assist him. If our sisters in trouble, to say good night. So shall the fortunes of our fathers be given to support this whole race, and his care be continued to you all in your love to each other. Islam, Islam, Islam. This meeting is officially closed according to Act 2 by the divine Constitution, and love, truth, peace, freedom, and justice. Go in peace, Moors. Long live Moorish America. Peace. Peace and love, man. Peace and love. Great class, brother. Peace and love, Moors. Peace and love. There's more elevated the Moors. We love you, Grandson.
Islam, Moors.
Love you, Grandson. Thank you, number 1. Love you, Moorish America. Islam. Islam is a great class, brother.
Peace and love, Moors. We love you.
This session is no longer being recorded.
Peace and love to our family, Islam. We want to give honor to all of our family for checking in with us, and we just say gratitude, and we love you, family. Come back to see us again. Islam.